Hello, my name is Justin Decloux, and I'm here today with...
Will Sloan.
Oh, yeah!
Hickory dickory dock.
Oh, man, the Dice Man himself is in the room.
That's right. On this episode, we are talking about stand-up or live comedy on film.
Yes, almost all of them, except for one, was shot on film that we're talking about today.
And let's define our terms,
Yes.
because for the most...
Define them, and then we'll break it for whatever we want to talk about.
Exactly. So for the most part, we're going to be talking about theatrically released concert films featuring comedians. Most of them stand up. One of them, a sketch comedy group. And these are movies that were given wide theatrical release, were reviewed and received as movies, were shot on film. And we would like to interrogate a little bit, not just the comedians in the films, but what is cinematic about these movies? What about being on film and being shown in a theater is important? And then we're also talking about
Robin Williams live on Broadway.
We're talking about a film figure, and who we've talked about before, in his element.
Are you a fan of stand-up, Will?
Yes, I'm going to say yes. I'm a fan of stand-up.
Do you consume it like live?
Very rarely. Sometimes. I have a big collection of like stand-up comedy albums. I like stand-up.
Wait a minute. Let me take a step back. Is this from the 40s or the 50s?
Well, definitely.
Most of it.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think they didn't really have
stand-up. Yeah, I know.
Like Bob Hope, as we learned, was a real progenitor of that.
Yeah.
But I do like stand-up because it's a very pure art form. It's going out on stage and it's putting yourself in the most vulnerable possible position of saying, and now I'm going to make you laugh. And if they don't laugh, like the embarrassment of that is potentially enormous.
Now, as a kid, I surprisingly listened to a lot of stand-up because we would take 2 to 3 week camping trips during the summer with my dad, and he would have a burned CD of oftentimes just random acts that he probably got off Napster or something like that. So there was like an Orlando Jones bit that I remember involving semen at a crime scene, but most specifically, all of the classic George Carlin stuff. And we could not get enough of it. I just wanted to hear it again and again and again.
George Carlin is classic dad material. A large number of kids were introduced to George Carlin through their dads, pulling out their Carlin at Carnegie album or whatever. I have a very clear memory of when I was a kid, my dad was watching some George Carlin on TV and he said, "Check it out, it's Mr. Conductor from Shining Time Station." And he was
what does he say?
He was swearing.
Wow.
It was the 7 dirty words bit. That was the first thing I ever saw of him.
Probably the most famous George Carlin bit of all. And of course, I'm watching as a kid a lot of Seinfeld that introduces you basically to the concept of what a stand-up does. Yet I do not consume much stand-up on my own. I probably went through a period in the early 2000s. We were all Dane Cook crazy, who's going to come back up again when we talk about flash in the pan of stand-up comedians, as well as people like Dimitri Martin, the kind of like twee, if you will, personality-based stand-up special.
Well, stand-up kind of goes in cycles, doesn't it? I mean, in the 1980s, there was the huge stand-up comedy boom, comedy clubs opening from coast to coast. There was a huge vogue for stand-up comedy in the 80s with comedy clubs opening from coast to coast. I think in your head, you have like a stereotypical conception of like a certain kind of 80s comedian. Yeah. Him, absolutely. There's also when I think of 80s comedians, I think of like a kind of gimmicky comedian like Gallagher, or I like him, but Bobcat Goldthwait.
Or
like
doing the voice, being chaotic on stage.
Andrew Dice Clay, guys who have like a gimmick that they do.
Did you ever like a gimmick comedian though? Like I knew of them. I can't say I ever watched Smirnoff.
Yakov Smirnoff in Soviet Russia. Yeah. Well, I do like Bobcat.
Yeah.
He's funny.
Have I seen any of his like classic stand-up? It's mostly pockets that you see in clip shows.
I've definitely seen like sometimes on talk shows from the 80s, he's very funny. And who could forget his triumphant performance in Police Academy?
Of course. I thought you were going to bring up when he destroyed the set of what talk show?
It was Jay Leno. He lit the set on fire.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. So he did that.
And then he had to deliver
Arsenio Hall. Is that where he apologized, or he destroyed that set as well?
Yeah. He had to deliver a public service message against arson as like his parole, I guess.
I mean, that's very funny.
And right now, though, there is another huge stand-up comedy boom on Netflix. I mean, is
anyone watching it though?
Apparently, millions and millions of people are. Because
and wait, who's telling me this? Netflix.
Well, I actually believe it because
Okay.
what is Netflix for? Netflix is for turning on and passively consuming while you're
tuning on and tuning out.
you're making dinner, you know, you're folding laundry, you're trying to dull yourself to sleep.
People always say, like, I'm folding laundry and watching TV. How much laundry are you folding? But, like, you're doing it, looking at your phone. That's what people are doing, and putting Netflix on.
That's also absolutely the case. And I think, you know, the theatrically released stand-up comedy movie, which was an endangered species already. There weren't that many of them.
Blue Collar Comedy Tour.
I think it's really become extinct with the advent of Netflix.
Absolutely,
Which is
yes.
sort of its natural habitat.
I would have instantly gone and seen those Adam Sandler Netflix specials if they played in cinemas.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Would have been great, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of lament that something like that can't play in cinemas.
And for me to say that, like, I don't see a lot of stand-up, when I have gone and seen it, I've laughed and laughed and laughed, you know, if it's funny. But there's nothing worse than bad stand-up. And I'm not going to boo or anything like that.
No, you're not going to boo?
No.
You
well, boo and throw stuff.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there and making almost no money and trying to make me laugh. Well, you're not succeeding.
Come with a huge bag of tomatoes, and at the entrance they ask, why do you have all those tomatoes?
Oh, I need them for my vitamins. That's why. Man, I'm an improv stand-up comedy guy right there. Just firing on all cylinders.
Yes, we have a carefully curated selection of stand-up comedy or live sketch films, each with a comedian who represents something very different, and in some cases something very the same.
So we decided to watch 4 films. Why don't we go in chronological order, if you will?
Okay. So on this episode, we are not covering any Richard Pryor because we did an episode on Richard Pryor.
Which he probably had the ultimate theatrical stand-up film.
Yeah, live on the Sunset Strip, you know, still pretty good, I would say.
And we didn't. I'm sure there's some theatrically released Cosby specials, right?
Yeah, there's Bill Cosby himself. That played theaters. And forgive us if we don't discuss Bill Cosby.
Oh, we will, because one of the comedians talks about it a lot.
Oh, that's right. Actually, let's start with Eddie Murphy.
It's okay. So he will be the temperature setter of the rest of the discussions that we have.
Because this movie made over $50 million domestically at a time when that really meant something.
And that's Eddie Murphy, raw.
Came out in 1987, pretty much near the peak of Eddie Murphy's stardom.
Now, it is oftentimes considered the lesser special to Delirious. Delirious, he has the iconic red jacket. Like, when people think of Eddie Murphy, the stand-up comic, I think that's what goes through their mind.
Right. Yeah, that tight red suit.
I mean, we both own one.
Yeah. And that was an HBO special. And the thing about Eddie Murphy is, like, as a comedian, I've long kind of had a kind of distaste for him. I mean, as a sketch actor, he's great.
I love it.
As an actor, he's great. In my head, I always think, his stand-up is so kind of misogynistic and ugly. The thing is, though, he has at least like 10 bits in 2 specials that I think about and laugh when I think about, you know?
The thing about Eddie Murphy is, and I'm going to say this a lot, when you boil it down, the content of what he's saying is not very different from the less favorably liked comedian that we're also going to discuss this week. But he delivers it with such enthusiasm and timing and acting that he sells it in what he's doing. Even though that, like, as it played, I was like, oh.
Yeah. So first of all, the movie begins with a sketch.
You have to. That's the law if you make one of these.
A sort of origin story of how Eddie Murphy came to be.
Oh, so it's like 30 minutes? Like another special that we watched this week?
It's a Murphy family gathering. Samuel L. Jackson is in there as his dad.
I'm disappointed Eddie Murphy is not playing every role.
Yeah.
That would come later.
And, you know, all the kids are like singing a song and they're doing their talent. And his talent is he tells jokes. Very scatological jokes. And this opening sketch, you know, you're watching it and you're thinking, why am I watching this? This isn't funny.
Where's Eddie Murphy?
And the first laugh comes in the opening credits when it said opening sketch written by Eddie Murphy and Keenan Ivory Wayans. So it took 2 people to write this sketch.
You had to polish it to the gleam that it had. Hey, box office returns aren't lying, Will.
Yeah.
I'm going to yell that every time we have any criticism about the special.
But then during the opening credits, I mean, pandemonium, you know, the concert's about to start.
This is like the superstar special. Of like the guy walking in, you start on his legs, he's flanked by 2 bodyguards.
And Eddie Murphy became very famous very young. He was like, 18 years old on his first season of Saturday Night Live. He was 19 or 20 when he did Delirious. He's in his mid-20s here. Really young to, you know, have
that much pressure, that much attention,
that much fame, that much success. I heard Chris Rock somewhere say that, you know, among the really famous black comedians, the ones who crossed over into sort of white America, like Dick Gregory and Bill Cosby, he was the first one who acted his age, so to speak.
And I should say, this documentary is directed by Robert Townsend, who I think is a great director.
Well, the first big surprise for me in the opening credits was that the cinematography was by Ernest Dickerson of Do the Right Thing. So the movie looks very good.
Yes, but having said that, there's not that many things you can do with a stand-up special without breaking the idea of what a stand-up special is. So I don't think we'll talk too much about how many of them are directed or any storytelling decisions that are present in them, because it's just a document of this guy doing his thing. Now, there are some moves in some of them, like, I don't remember which one, but like the camera panned out at one point. It was Robin Williams that he yelled and the camera went from a high angle up all the way up to make it small.
I think Dice Rules has some interesting things it's doing cinematically.
Yes, we'll get to that one.
But so these opening credits, like, it's establishing Eddie Murphy is the coolest guy ever. He's the handsomest comedian ever. You know, you've got these fans outside who are like, oh, he's so dreamy. I love him in the red suit. I love all of his movies. He's the best guy. He's so cool.
No irony in this either.
No irony.
Yeah.
He is, and it's funny, like, on those seasons of SNL, you had two guys, Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo, who both thought they were really cool. And only one of them actually pulled it off, and it was Eddie.
That Eddie Murphy SNL sketch, is it White Like Me? It's a parody of that.
Yeah.
Is maybe my favorite sketch of all time. Like, I think about it all the time. There's so many funny jokes in that sketch.
And, you know, watching Eddie Murphy Raw, it's like, God damn it, you know, this guy really is talented.
Oh, undeniably.
And he would not be able to get away with any of this shit if he wasn't, like, the most talented comic actor of his generation.
Do you think that, like, I mean, no one would be taken to task for this stuff when this movie came out?
Well, there's the quote unquote problematic stuff.
Yes.
Which, I mean, the homophobia is legendary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it comes from Delirious because he comments on it in Raw.
Right. I mean, the stuff in Delirious is horrific.
Yes. It's just like the misogyny. That's the basis of the whole comedy special.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, if he wasn't super talented, nobody would forgive him for the outfit he's wearing.
I mean, people have kind of forgotten that outfit.
If anything, I think they remember it fondly.
Yeah.
It's like, typically a comedian is sort of like self-deprecating. A comedian isn't supposed to be like cooler than the audience. At least that's the normal laws of physics around these things. But Eddie,
he's undeniable. Cool. Yeah, he's undeniable.
Yeah, so he gets away with it because he's that charismatic. Although he does very cannily in the opening few minutes, like, his first joke is about making Mr. T mad and being worried about Mr. T.
Like, the first section of this comedy special is very endearing to Eddie because he humanizes himself by commenting on the blowback from the previous special.
Right. So he's like, oh, Mr. T wants to beat me up. And it's like, Mr. T's an easy target, right?
Yeah.
But he could beat Eddie Murphy up.
And his structure is just a Bugs Bunny joke where he's like, I'll just convince him that he doesn't he doesn't know where I am.
He talks about Michael Jackson, how he can't do the moonwalk.
You cannot do a comedy special.
I know.
In the last, like...
There's got to be some Michael Jackson jokes. He also does something where he talks about how, like, white America loves Michael Jackson because they think he's asexual.
Yes. And he's like, I got bad news for you.
Yeah. But then he also says something like, well, isn't it interesting that white America, like, didn't get outraged when he took Brooke Shields to the Grammys because they knew he wasn't going to fuck her. Now, I would have fucked her. Yeah. He says that. And that's an important line, too, because, like, as this guy, you know, one of the biggest, like, black superstars of all time, even among white people, he was also one of the first to say, also, I fuck.
Yes.
And I fuck a lot. And
Richard Pryor did.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
But Bill Cosby was the image of the African-American comedian.
That's right.
Which is very gentle.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no swears. As Eddie Murphy says, he got a call from Bill Cosby and, you know, not happy about the act that he did.
Iconic bit.
Yep, very funny.
There are several, I think, really iconic bits in this. I like the bit later on where, you know, he's talking about every time a Rocky movie comes out, you know, a bunch of Italians want to start having fights with black people.
Yep.
I mean, that's funny. I will say that there's 40 minutes in the middle of this movie that is just deadly to me.
Hey, women, am I right?
I know. It's just...
The audience is loving it,
They love it.
And what's wild is that, like, it's the same reaction as Dice Rules. It'll cut to the audience being like, yeah! of like, are you right? Yeah, you got me.
And like Dice Rules, it's not laughter, it's cheering.
It's cheering.
And
it's like, oof.
And the humor is the most basic, like, women be after your money, you know, men
can't control themselves, they have sex with everyone.
Yeah.
Now, if you push it far enough, that is degrading to men. That could be funny, but that's not what it is.
And there's some, like, I think pretty ugly misogyny in this movie of, like, you know, he has the whole bit about how Johnny Carson had to spend so much money on his alimony.
Hey, your wife didn't do anything. She's just there to have sex with you. That's all she's there for.
And he has this bit about, like, you know, I'm going to get a wife. I'm going to go to Africa and find a zebra bitch to marry who don't know anything.
Yeah.
And, like, that, I don't know.
I don't find pull Will back from doing any accents or imitations.
Yeah.
You cannot do Eddie Murphy.
I don't think it's funny.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty ugly. And I think it's wrong to say.
But who are we to say this? Comedy is subjective. Isn't it about pushing limits, Will?
Well,
I'm playing the devil's advocate of anybody commenting on this right now.
I mean, what I do know is that a lot of people went to see this movie, loved it, and still love it.
Yeah. So, watching it now?
So, you have fun with it. That's what I say.
And I can see, like, the technical chops of him pulling it off on stage. I understand why this is funny. This is not a mass delusion like, what? How? Why were we laughing at this? Like,
he's still incredibly charismatic.
I know it, like, looking at it on screen.
And there are isolated moments in this that I still think are very funny.
And the thing is, like, Eddie Murphy is funny. Like, he's on SNL doing stand-up bits. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's like this particular thing, like, this is what people wanted. This is what comedy was, etc. So that's why it is the way it is. And he never did a stand-up special after this, I don't think, right?
And I wish he would, actually.
Because I would love to know what his stand-up now, I mean, he did it on SNL, like, a little bit.
And when he accepted the Mark Twain Prize at the Kennedy Center, he did about 5 minutes of stand-up where he again made fun of Bill Cosby.
I love it.
This time after Cosby's downfall.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's still funny.
Yeah.
And what does a 60-year-old Eddie Murphy look like doing stand-up, you know, at this level?
I think not giving him Oscars just burned him out of, like, challenging himself anymore.
And I think also he's probably, like, he had so much success so early. He's probably
too much.
He's intimidated by that success.
Well, he's talked about he just stays at home with his 36 children. He has so many kids. Like,
and every time he needs some money, he goes and makes $20 million doing some piece of shit for Netflix.
Do you know that his voice in Mulan playing that dragon, the directors basically said they showed up, like, on the day and they had, like, one take out of him for everything, and they basically had to turn the pages faster to get him done before he was out.
I believe it.
Yep.
It's probably worth every penny, too.
I mean, if you look at that movie, you wouldn't know that. Listening to his performance, so, you know, he delivers.
I'm making waffles.
I mean, we were saying that left and right when that movie came out, and we're all excited for him to come back.
So here's a less interesting case study. It's 1982's Monty Python live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, you hear that? That's the sound of my microwave making up some leftovers.
So yeah, this comes from late in the reign of Monty Python. They had done Life of Brian in 1989.
God, so they hated each other by this point.
The Meaning of Life was coming in 83, and this comes from the autumn of their years together. And as you said, this is reheated leftovers.
Yeah.
These are all the bits you've seen already. And mind you, it's 1982, so we still got another 40 years after this of seeing these bits over and over and over and over and over again still.
But people love this. Like, when the hint of the bit that's coming up, they lose their mind.
So I love this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to see it again, honestly.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first saw this movie for the first time when I was a kid, when it was playing on PBS.
Okay, yeah.
And I had a great time watching it.
Where Monty Python lives, PBS.
Yeah, that's right.
Or did.
And I guess my question is, given that we've all seen this material, even in 1982, we've all seen this material, everyone going to see Monty Python at the Hollywood Bowl has seen this material.
They know it, yeah.
And they're going in the spirit of a rock concert. Why?
Yeah, this is a thing that, like, watching it is, I can make fun of it for being reheated leftovers, but people just want to see the bits done again. But the problem with that, from a comedic standpoint, is that is not comedy for me. Like, I want to be laughing, and you need surprise in some manner to get that out of me.
That's right. So it's not comedy in the way that these other movies are. I mean, if you were watching all this material for the first time, well, first of all, I'd say watch the show because you'll get better timed versions of these sketches.
Yeah, I don't think, like, you would bust a gut watching these bits for the first time in this.
But it's in the tradition of, like, Abbott and Costello did Who's on First how many times.
Yeah. It's like a vaudeville routine, right?
And so some of these sketches, like the Argument Clinic, you know, first they lend themselves to being heard a lot because like there's a patter to them. It's like a Beckett play, some of these sketches. The back and forth of it is very rhythmic, almost musical.
And there's some film bits that are from their German specials.
That's right.
That's like, what do we got here? Open up that garbage bin and just scrape the bottom.
But I think the real theory I developed while watching this, and full disclosure, skipping parts of it, because it's like, I'm sorry, I've seen this.
I didn't skip. I sat and watched.
You watched the whole thing.
Yeah,
I've seen this so many times.
Oh, but have you seen the live at the Hollywood Bowl version many times?
Yes.
Okay, so I've never seen this version.
I'm a super fan.
I remember renting the VHS of And Now for Something Completely Different and being like, what the hell is this? These are just refilmed versions of the sketches from the TV show.
Monty Python's amazing because they basically had 2 years where they wrote everything.
Yes.
And then 60 years after that.
Because
where
they hated each other.
They did it all over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then every 5 years, they'd be like, well, we should make another movie because we can make some money. And they did.
And the thing is that they're funny, but I think that like they disliked each other so much. I don't remember who said it, but they broke up one day walking down the street, and John Cleese turned around and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was it. They were done at that point.
Yeah. But, I think they're like the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
Where they have factions within the group as well. Like
there's multiple groups that came together from other sketch comedy things to make it.
But I think my theory while watching it this time is that, both for the people watching it at the Hollywood Bowl and the people watching it at home, like Monty Python was a cult phenomenon, or it was at least a cultier phenomenon than, say, Eddie Murphy was. At every school in America, there were like the 2 or 3 kids who watched.
That was me. Holy Grail a million times.
They watched.
But that's the thing, right? Is that like the Monty Python films are a like call and response thing that like it's a badge of honor to go and say these jokes to completely uninterested people that like I'll watch the movie if I want to.
And that's because like you think you're the only kid in your school who knows this and you're seeking your tribe.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching Monty Python live at the Hollywood Bowl and you're seeing all these happy spectators in LA watching it, you're like, oh, they're like me. And I
think that's what the value of the movie was.
I think it is. I think it's like they're enjoying Monty Python communally through this movie, which is something that a lot of people haven't had the fortune to do.
But I want to be like, do something new, please, for the love of, I enjoyed seeing Terry Gilliam in a lot of sketches.
Isn't it funny that like he's a really, he's a canonical filmmaker now and he's in these sketches playing like man who throws up.
Yep. Well, I know I've read about this in my Monty Python heyday of like how he got involved, how he was in sketches. Yeah. And like, if I were them, I'd be like, you're not in the live show. You're not really a performer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why he stuck around for the live show.
I mean, he loves the attention, I'm sure, to be on stage and to be a ham.
He wanted to be part of the group. Yeah.
That's before they canceled him and they wouldn't let him make stuff anymore.
Yeah, you can't do comedy anymore, apparently.
Yep. And this one, though...
in my day, we used to be able to do comedy, but now the wokesters, the millennials...
Wait, that's not Terry Gilliam. I think that's somebody else.
That's my John Cleese impression.
Die!
I would be very funny if I were just allowed to be, but unfortunately, for the last 40 years, I haven't been able to be funny.
The PC police came in. Yeah, when they were doing the Hollywood Bowl, they had all these new sketches that were too offensive, and they said, sorry, John, you're not allowed.
Right after I made A Fish Called Wanda, just before the Berlin Wall fell, I realized that the wokesters were canceling comedy.
Do you think that, like, Eric Idle and Michael Palin look at, like, John Cleese and like, oh, my God.
Yeah, probably,
Please, I don't want to hear. I mean, Eric Idle had that, like, Twitter rant where it's like, I have to work to pay my bills. And then, like, Unwritten was like my 7 houses, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The quality of living I am accustomed to.
I'll tell you something about Eric Idle. It's like he did spam a lot. And it's like, I'm sorry, you should have been able to make that money last. That was a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah. A lot of money also for reheated leftovers.
Yeah, it's so old. I mean, okay, we're talking about this. We're going to have to take a little dip into their last live show.
Okay, well, listen, if you thought Live at the Hollywood Bowl was a little stale, you got to watch.
I mean, it feels more like a death march, their last one. What is it called? It was released on video,
Yeah,
right?
It was called Monty Python Live Mostly.
Did you see it live?
I was in no financial position to do that.
I remember us talking about it at the time.
Yeah, I would have, if I had the money, I would have flown across the Atlantic and gone to see that because I love them so much.
You want to see like Terry Jones with dementia, like being forced on stage?
Well, I mean, no, but then also they mean so much to me.
Counterpoint. I did see Meatloaf when he couldn't hear any notes. Delightful show.
I saw Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, who can't sing anymore.
Yep. Classic Will story.
Yeah. And he was great.
Because I saw him interviewed by, one of our highest TV talk show guys, George Stroumboulopoulos.
Oh, the god.
It was Brian Wilson and Donald Glover on the show at the two musical gods smashing together.
Wow, the old and the new.
Why did we go? I don't even remember. It was just me and my friend. We had to go for some reason.
God, that's amazing. But yeah, the 2014 reunion show. I mean, I remember when that was announced, I thought to myself, oh, isn't that nice? They want to get back together. They want to do one more thing. And that's like, oh, they owed £1 million in legal fees.
Probably fighting each other.
There's a
documentary about it, right?
Yeah. And the documentary is much more interesting to watch than the show itself.
These old, sad, angry, bitter men. Except for Michael Palin.
Doing the goddamn parrot sketch again.
They did not do the parrot sketch in Hollywood Bowl.
And I looked this up. At the actual show, they did.
They had to, right? There's no way.
But they didn't put it in the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So number 3, we're talking about, it feels like he's been dormant for a while in this podcast. There was a period where we talked about him almost every episode. It's Andrew Dice Clay, the Dice Man himself.
So, January 1989.
Yes.
A special is released called The Dice Man Cometh.
HBO.
For 10 years, a man named Andrew Clay Silverstein had been working as a journeyman actor, comedian, impressionist.
Jerry Lewis lover.
And then in, 88, he started workshopping this character, the Dice Man, Andrew Dice Clay.
And he would say very specifically, if you interviewed him around the time of this, popularity, it is a character. It is not me.
That's right. He explodes in the year 1989. 1989 is the Annus Mirabilis for Andrew Dice Clay. 1990, he reaches his very pinnacle with The Adventures of Ford Fairlane,
which bombed at the box office.
And 1991, downfall.
Yeah.
1993, he's starring in an Albert Pune movie.
Yeah. Now, is that Albert Pune film, Brain Smasher, a love story, good?
I like it. I like it.
And I will say, great Andrew Dice Clay performance in it.
And that is the beginning of a long tenure in direct-to-video land.
Yeah, he also blew up, was given a chance because if you are popular before 1995, you are an amber forever. Yeah. So you can get 3 seasons of a Curb Your Enthusiasm spinoff where you play yourself.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, throughout the 90s, he's in all of these, what was that Shannon Tweed movie he was in?
No Contest.
No Contest. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a good one too.
He's the villain in My 5 Wives with Rodney Dangerfield.
Well, because he was good friends with Rodney Dangerfield, and he says that Rodney Dangerfield gave him his break.
And then, of course, in the late 2000s, he has that run on Entourage. Yeah. And
I never saw him on Entourage.
Well, that is apparently what led the way for Blue Jasmine, A Star Is Born.
Which he's good in.
Those movies that, he was such
Vinyl. He's in the Martin Scorsese show. He worked with Martin Scorsese.
Incredible. And those movies, I think, he's older, he's paunchier, he's more textured. They really harness his, quality as a character actor.
Now, I want to drill down onto why I'm not obsessed with him, but I'm fascinated by him. And I think it has to start with Brain Smasher, a love story, because I never knew Andrew Dice Clay. He was never in my orbit. None of my friends were talking about him because by the time we were conscious enough to have those discussions, he was long gone.
I mean, I knew who he was because I saw the tapes in the comedy section of the video store.
Yeah.
And I eventually read Roger Ebert's review of Dice Rules, which is 0 stars and is one of his most hysterical pans ever.
So I have to say, I think I knew what his comedy was, but until I watched Dice Rules for this episode, I'd never watched a sustained version of his show.
I had heard, when I was in undergrad, I listened to The Day the Laughter Died.
Okay, yeah. So The Day the Laughter Died, we'll get to. And so Dice Rules, this is supposed to be his Raw. He's the most popular that he is. He sells out Madison Square Garden for 2 nights.
In the middle of 1990.
20,000 people?
That's right. And this movie was supposed to be released in the late summer of 1990, but the movie studio, Fox, they had been burned with Ford Fairlane, which flopped.
Which I enjoy.
And also Dice Rules got an NC-17. So they dumped the movie, and it didn't get released until almost a year later by New Line, and most major chains boycotted it, wouldn't play it. So this movie was a disaster.
Too funny.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't want to insure the audience for death by laughter.
So, man, It's going to be tough not to talk for 2 hours about dice rules.
It's a rich text.
And I'm going to, preface this. If you think our conversation is too short about this, we're going to talk for 30 minutes about Andrew Dice Clay on the Patreon this week, because we both listened to The Day the Laughter Died. And it's very difficult to talk about this without it being in conversation with the viewing of that. Right?
So we'll talk about this more on the Patreon. Yeah. But I guess one thing I'll say is, unlike the other concert movies that we watched, or more than the other concert movies, the audience is an important part of this one.
Yes. So Jonathan Rosenbaum, in his review, he compares it to a Nazi rally. And it's not a fully negative review either.
Yeah. I mean, Roger Ebert's review ends with a line along the lines of, watching this movie, I understood how demagogues can come to power.
We're dancing around what Andrew Dice Clay's comedy is.
Okay, but why don't I just say what it is?
Yeah.
He's got, guys, Andrew Dice Clay. He's got a leather jacket.
They do not.
He's got a leather jacket. He's really macho.
Yeah.
And he's got a cigarette, and he comes out on stage and he says very vile and misogynistic things.
Yes. And racist. Yeah, any ist that you can think of, Andrew Dice Clay is doing it on stage. It is not like Eddie Murphy. There is not like a technical prowess. I would even argue a charisma there of what he's doing.
It is purposely not clever.
Yes, purposely not clever.
Yeah.
So it's often a setup and a punchline. Oftentimes that punchline, the joke is it's barely a punchline.
Yeah, the comedy is as basic as it can be, and that is the point.
Yes.
And
but okay, I need to jump in on this because that is the point, right?
Yeah.
That you feel the idea that when he did this character, and we're gonna bring that deadly label, that he's an anti-comedy character.
Absolutely.
That the joke is that he's not funny. That what he's saying is not funny. But then the world went, but I find this funny, not in the way that he's intending it.
Yeah, and
so if you're him, you're like, I guess I become this guy.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Neil Hamburger in him.
Yeah.
A lot of Tim Heidecker, but also I do think within Andrew Dice Clay there's a bit more attraction repulsion.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I think he likes dirty jokes.
Yeah, I think he does too.
Yeah.
But he knows that these are base and they're very low effort in the way that he's delivering them.
And as you said, in interviews, he would say, I'm playing a character.
That's not the way that the people in the audience, like they are, like we talked about Eddie Murphy, they're cheering him on.
Right.
They're not laughing. This is, like Monty Python, a kind of like performance for an audience that is, they're saying the words of his dirty nursery rhymes.
Exactly. It's very interactive. And the movie itself, in the way, in its editing and its camera work, is foregrounding that by showing you almost as much of the audience as it shows of Andrew Dice Clay. It's constantly cutting to the audience, constantly cutting to people like he's saying things that I don't think are particularly funny, but
they're loving
they're in hysterics.
Yes.
And they're cheering. And
now, what's funny about this is I want to take a step back and just like, I do not think this is a conscious decision, but like at one point he goes, turn the lights on, turn the lights on. And all I can think about is Andrew Dice Clay, a little voice inside of him is like, look at each other. You're enjoying this?
Yeah.
Like, look at the people who are enjoying. We can't even make the jokes on this podcast.
I mean, well, what is there to say about the jokes? It's one joke after another. The base Andrew Dice Clay joke is basically, so this chick, she was sucking my dick.
Yeah.
And then she said, can you get me off now too? And I said, no, fuck you.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Oh, and we should also say
we need to talk about the wraparounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So these wraparounds, we need to be clear though. Andrew Dice Clay wanted to be Jerry Lewis.
He loves The Nutty Professor. He wanted to make a sequel to The Nutty Professor.
The thing about Andrew Dice Clay is he is just playing Buddy Love. That is his character.
Yeah, so
from The Nutty Professor.
So the movie begins with Andrew Dice Clay like sitting next to a car being like, hey, you may wonder how I became who I am.
And this is important that we do see the Dice Man that everybody loves before we get to this interminable, endless sketch of him just acting like a Jerry Lewis imitator, being harangued by his wife, who, let me just say, may be a little bit large, if you will.
Yeah.
Yep.
One could say she's, overweight.
Yep. from everyone that he meets.
And he talks in a Jerry Lewis voice, kinda.
And let's be honest, filmmaking-wise, probably not any higher than most Jerry Lewis pictures.
Oh, I don't know about that, sir. You need to read your Robert Benayoun again.
Oh, God, yeah, you're right. I got to go back to school. But I was just thinking about, like, him with a bank clerk at one point, like, oh, well, oh, yeah. But it keeps cutting back to cool Andrew Dice Clay, just to let you know, like, okay, he's coming.
And it's so drawn out. It's such insane padding just to get to like 80 minutes or whatever. And then finally, the nerdy dice man gets the leather jacket.
Which, in a classic Jerry Lewis bit, who hands him that leather jacket? Andrew Dice Clay playing a different character.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now he's Buddy Love, as you said. And the rest of the movie is, what if Buddy Love just stayed Buddy Love?
Yeah, that's it.
And you liked him.
The rest of the movie, the rest of Andrew Dice Clay's life is what if he got trapped as Buddy Love?
Yeah.
Have you seen Andrew Dice Clay? He's fun in interviews.
I did watch a couple interviews with him, actually. Yeah. And, the thing about the Dice Man persona is it's like an elevated version of himself.
So it is him, but just like taken to the highest level. I would not want to hang out with the Dice Man, if you will.
Yeah.
But you still get like the same it's not like he's very serious Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, he still has a kind of like Brooklyn attitude about him. Those are his words. But he's also like he's not literally the Dice Man. Like,
he's not saying that stuff. He's not going around, even though that like he probably was around the time of Adventures of Lord Fairlane.
So I think what's important to think about with Andrew Dice Clay is, like, for all of his critics who said, like, oh, his concerts to these hate rallies, he's such a misogynist, this, that. He never actually became associated with any of those causes in real life. Like the whole men's rights movement, the manosphere, he never became associated with that. He also...
Are you sure someone's going to be like looking now?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but also like... And I don't know what his politics are. Probably reactionary.
Let me just quote the Dice Man in the special where he goes, thanks to Donald Trump, the Japanese, he does not use the word Japanese, haven't taken over.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's notable that like he hasn't really become like a MAGA guy.
No, yeah.
I mean, if maybe he voted for Trump, I don't know, but he hasn't become like
a spokesperson,
Mel Gibson or something like that.
Yeah, or Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, like those guys have, and he hasn't. And so there's a point in this movie where after just doing 10 minutes of material about making fun of people, he says, it's just jokes.
Yeah.
And I guess it was just jokes for him,
Yeah, I know, but then you have to take the step back and be like, oh, but this is very popular. The people in this audience cheering him on.
Well, and the other weird thing about it is, like, you look at this audience and there are a lot of women in there.
Yeah, a lot of women. And you keep seeing them,
and they love it.
They love it. They can't get enough of it. This is the 90s, Will. No one's offended anymore. You can say whatever you want. Or they are offended. And that's what's funny about it.
Well, but also, like, I think the empathetic reading might be, like, if you're a woman in this audience, like... You don't need any lectures about sexism. You don't need any lectures.
You get it every day.
Yeah. And so
this person is just saying what you face every day.
And he's doing the most like base thing, and he's not hiding anything. He's not hiding behind any nice guy act. He's making a joke about sexism, you can say.
And like it ramps up and gets like more and more vile as it goes. So it starts with all the like misogynistic stuff, and then it switches to like racial stuff, and then it's like just making fun of physically disabled people, stutterers at one point.
I mean,
old people.
So how different is it from Don Rickles, though?
Yes, that's the only difference. He became a mega superstar, and that his version is even more base than Don Rickles is.
That's true. And Don Rickles, like his audiences,
they want it. They're like, give it to me, Don.
His audiences nobody compared them to the Nuremberg rallies.
Yes, exactly.
It didn't have that vibe.
Like Don Rickles was in a Las Vegas room.
And Don Rickles, like, so Andrew Dice Clay is cool, right?
Supposed to be cool. You do not watch this now.
I don't think he's cool.
Yeah.
But it's like,
hey, sorry, I'm putting my leather jacket on.
He's playing a cool guy in the way that Don Rickles wasn't. So there was more confusion, I think, about like, is this a character? Is he endorsing this?
That's the thing. Is like Don Rickles was always just a guy making fun of you, while if you're a cool guy in a leather jacket, what you're saying is like, this is the norm. That this is what you want to achieve. And when you're at this level, I'm setting the tone for everything else.
So when you see this audience,
they are foaming at the mouth. They're like,
and like when you see them, a lot of men, a lot of women just cheering at this.
Now, was I squinting and I was like, Are they mostly white here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's overwhelmingly white.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is like, what is the cheering? Is the cheering like, is it a release of tension just from, so-called, it's like political correctness has run amok and we've come here to just like release tension from it? Or is it a Nazi rally?
Yeah. That he is espousing things they agree with, and then they're cheering it on. Like, I can't believe he's saying this.
Yeah. Or is it just like
that a woman goes, before he. Okay. There's some bits that generally made me laugh where he's like, I don't need her to clean her butt. I'm like Richard Nixon in there.
That was hilarious.
Yes.
And also there's a whole bit that he does about like, and I think this is the giveaway that he's playing a character. He does a bit where it's like women, until like 5 years ago, women didn't even know they needed to have pleasure. Like, I don't get pleasure. One stroke and I'm done.
Yeah, he talks a lot about that, of like
taking pride in.
Yeah, that he is like, he's like lessening himself. But I don't think the audience, like his fans in that moment.
Like, obviously the joke is like, who would brag about being bad at sex?
Yes, exactly. But I'm a 12-year-old and I'm like, watching this. For the record, I was not. So it is such a, this is the thing, is that like, he would have had to be more canny and likable for him to last longer. And he never played that game because that was not the character that he was.
And also, like, it was a character. He wasn't like George Carlin, even though Carlin was playing a heightened version of himself.
He was that guy.
Yeah. And so, like, George Carlin could, like, evolve and could do bits on politics and stuff.
There is nowhere for Andrew Dice Clay to go, even though he has like dozens of albums. I couldn't believe it.
I mean, we'll have to listen to some of them.
Well, we did listen to one, The Day the Laughter Died, and we'll be doing it on our Patreon this week. Please listen to that.
It's imagine the bizarro world Dice Rules. What if Dice Rules was not at Madison Square Garden, but was instead at a small comedy club on Boxing Day?
And what's wild is that he did this on purpose. This is what he was, which is what fascinates me about him.
Yeah.
That if he was just like the ultimate dumb guy comic, he would not, and he's been interviewed about this, where he said like, yeah, I don't want people to laugh. But he's doing the same stuff he's doing in Dice Rules.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to dig more deep into that on the Patreon episode.
Now, I'll tell you, I liked Dice Rules more than...
The next one?
Yeah, I think so. Well, although, again, the next one...
Yeah, but you're looking at Dice Rules from a, like, archaeological standpoint.
Okay, who do I find funnier, Andrew Dice Clay or Robin Williams?
I mean...
It's a complicated question.
Oh, boy, you're going to get into this. I think Robin Williams is funnier than Andrew Dice Clay. I think that's undeniable.
So I think has a bigger and broader talent.
I don't think Andrew Dice Clay, if I met him in person, would make me laugh.
Probably not.
I think that Robin Williams would instantly make me laugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
so Robin Williams live on Broadway.
This is his fourth special.
Yeah, and we're
talking. It's so defining because me and you probably watch it.
This isn't cinema at all.
No,
this was on HBO, but he is a cinema figure.
Yes.
So that's our justification.
And
we're interested in Robin Williams.
Yeah, I wanted to go return to it once again after watching it 30 times. It was just one of the DVDs.
I saw this
when I
was 13, and I laughed and I laughed.
I think I laughed till I was crying at some point. And I have to say, I probably saw it young enough. I didn't get most of what he was talking, but it didn't matter because of how he was delivering it.
I mean, that's the Robin Williams touch right there. That's the sauce. It's like a really funny guy saying unfunny things funnily.
Yes. Some of them that perhaps he may have accidentally stolen from other comedians.
Yeah, he went to the forest and found the lowest hanging fruit and just kept picking it.
So this special, for people who haven't seen it, if you're not me and Will, why would you have?
But this was kind of a comeback for him because, in the 90s after Mrs. Doubtfire, there's that run of movies like sappy
Oscar award-winning Mrs. Doubtfire for makeup. And
how could I forget he won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting in 97?
Patch Adams and Jacob the Liar.
Yeah, he didn't win Oscars for those.
Wait, did he win for...
One for Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yeah, he's very good at Good Will Hunting.
He is. He's terrific. I mean, he's a great actor.
We did an episode on Robin Williams. Controversial. I feel like it's more controversial because I keep calling it that when we talk about it. You said people have approached you and be like, I listened to that Robin Williams episode.
Every time we do an episode that we think is going to be like for them.
Yeah.
An episode that's like, okay, here's a popular subject.
And we question it lightly. I mean, I feel we question Robin Williams a little bit more heavily than we usually
Well,
do.
I think Robin Williams is fascinating to us because, like, we grew up with him.
Yes.
We loved
Jim
him.
Carrey level, I would say.
Absolutely. And he was comedy.
Yes.
And
which is so funny when you think about what were the movies. So Ace Ventura, undeniable. I watch it now and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I know why I was laughing. Parts still make me laugh. And I'm bringing up that old bugbear again.
Parts don't make you laugh.
Yeah, parts don't make me laugh. Mrs. Doubtfire, a movie I arguably maybe watch more than Ace Ventura. And I don't want to go into it again, but
I don't think it's funny.
I don't think it's funny.
I mean, Aladdin, you know, the voice of the genie.
Hilarious and a lot. Love him.
At least when I was a kid, he was hilarious.
Yep.
But yeah, I think there's this paradox of like, he is incredibly talented.
Yes.
Like when he's on screen, I'm feeling happy.
Jack.
Until the movie starts. And then like 95% of the time, I'm like, this movie's terrible.
Why do you think he had that special sauce that people do look back at him as an almost like fatherly figure? Like any YouTube video that, oh man, I loved Robin Williams.
I mean, an amazing mix of just like sweetness and spice. Like, you know, he has this vulnerable look to him. He has this big wide open face, you know, with that big mouth.
What I remember from the special the most is just how sweaty he gets through it. And he's just like covered in sweat by the end of it.
Yeah, you definitely feel when he's doing comedy, he seems like he's possessed by some force. It's a full body performance. I mean, watching Robin Williams live on Broadway this time, I mean, I did admire just the work.
Yeah.
You know,
the amount of jokes that he packed into it.
I mean, I don't know how he remembered it all. It's dizzying.
Did you think about a comedy stand-up show that me and you saw together in comparison to Robin Williams?
Oh, when we went to see Jay Leno.
When we went to go see Jay Leno.
Well,
because structurally, they're very similar.
In that it's just pummeling you with jokes.
With jokes. I would say, though.
Many of them a little hack.
Most of them.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that Jay Leno, which I think probably comes maybe from his early stand-up, which I haven't seen that much, and from being on a talk show for so long, a lot of them were rooted in his own life. Like, that jokes would be structured around that. Robin Williams has none of that. It's just like, joke. We start right away, Michael Jackson. I checked the time, like 2 minutes.
My heart sank when we got the Michael Jackson jokes. Yeah, in the first 2 minutes.
You know what? It starts, and he comes on stage, and he looks back at the big eye, and he's like, whoa, wow, it's the first thing a baby sees.
That was funny.
That's funny.
So he says 1,000 jokes in this, and some of them hit.
Yes.
I mean,
And the ones that don't.
The ones that don't are horrible. But that bit near the end where he's got like the water bottle coming out of his fly. I mean,
funny.
I was laughing when he's, you know, doing cunnilingus on his arm.
I mean, that's one of the
funny,
iconic bits.
Classic.
Now let's talk about
the rest of it. Yeah. I mean, it's just like the lamest, lowest hanging.
Yeah, fruit. Like at one point, he hits like so many in a row where it's like, hey, there's a lot of African Americans playing sports. I bet you they sound a little bit something like this. And it's
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like Tiger Woods.
You know, if there's ever wordplay, it'll be something like he has a joke like, you know, oh, imagine a dyslexic saying one nation underdog. You know, like I probably would have read that in a freaking joke book when I was 6.
Now, George W. Bush jokes, I'm like,
yeah.
Super fresh at this point.
And I mean, the nerve that he has, like half a dozen times throughout the special of like pretending to be the HBO censor, being like, oh, damn it, I can't believe he just said that.
And it's like, we love this, Robin. Keep doing it.
Yeah. Do you remember on the DVD of this?
There was a special, like a little...
There was a hidden feature that was just a compilation of all the swears that he said.
I don't think I did see that.
Yeah. It was just him going, fuck, motherfucker, fuck. And like, as if it was edgy. Because if you're watching this when you're 8, it is.
Because you know him from like Patch Adams,
and here he's saying fuck.
Yep. And he's also doing a lot of voices, as he tended to do.
Yeah.
Voices that... I don't think they'd allow him to do anymore.
Oh, I bet they would. If he was still alive, he'd still be doing these voices.
Yeah. What would he be like if he was, depressed?
I think he'd be just like this. I think he'd be doing pretty much the same act, except plug in Donald Trump's name for George W. Bush's.
Do you think there would be a not a reckoning, but I don't know, Robin. Maybe shift? Because
maybe.
Have you seen him on Whose Line Is It Anyway? Very funny.
Very funny.
Yeah. So it's like, why is he? There's that. immediacy there, while this is, again, like just reading a joke book on cocaine. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, and so,
And not a particularly funny joke book. One I got on Remainder at the dollar store.
So, this special, even though it has all those F words,
yes,
it's best appreciated, I think, by like 10-year-olds who haven't heard all these jokes over and over again.
There were a lot of adults around me who were loving this special in 2003.
Well, actually, that's true. And you look at the YouTube comments.
They love it.
They love
it's on YouTube if you want to watch it.
And what can I say? He himself is very likable. Like, I mean, this is the big difference between him and Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
Like, Andrew Dice Clay, I think, is conceptually interesting. The issues he raises are interesting. He himself is not lovable. No. At least not in the same way that Robin Williams is.
Well, I think that like Eddie Murphy and Robin Williams are kind of on the same plane in the sense that they're delivering. Well, Eddie Murphy's maybe a little bit more vile, but it's, Robin Williams is similar as like, oh, this is funny, but it's also creating norms that as a child, I will go repeat to my friend because this is funny. This is like, I'm going to go out there and say it.
And Robin Williams, there's nothing conceptual about this act. There's nothing,
it's just joke.
It's not anti-comedy.
No, there's nothing there.
Yeah. But it is delivered with great energy.
Which is so weird because like he was besties with Bobcat, right?
He appreciated comedy.
And because he was in Shakes the Clown.
Yeah.
This is the same about Robin Williams. The more you hear about him, he had such good taste. Like, he loved video games.
I remember
loved anime.
after he died, like Greg Turkington, the real Greg Turkington, posted something along the lines of...
What do you mean the real Greg Turkington?
Yeah, the one who plays Neil Hamburger.
Oh, okay. Wait, so the one that's on cinema?
So Neil Hamburger posted something about like,
I
was telling jokes about Robin Williams for years, and then one day he came up to me in a club and said how much he liked me and how funny he found me, and made me feel a bit bad.
Robin Williams, for most people that knew him, they talk about that like it was just a need to please the audience and to make them laugh in the most direct way possible. Whether he, let's be honest, like that material at one point, like his special. I mean, this is the good stuff that I like. He's just shitting because he's talking about going to the proctologist.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for me,
that's good stuff.
That's good stuff. And he's like, he has a water bottle. He's doing shtick.
Well, he was friends with Andy Kaufman.
Yes.
And he's in Andy Kaufman's Carnegie Hall concert doing a bit. And it's just interesting. It's interesting the comedians who were drawn to Andy Kaufman. Him and Jim Carrey were both obsessed with Kaufman because they are the two neediest comedians of all time, and Kaufman was the least needy comedian. And I think they look at Kaufman and they're find
like,
it.
How do I want this, but I can't do it.
I think they find it like looking at a roller coaster or something. It's like, could you imagine going out on stage and needing the audience's love that little? I think they're fascinated by that.
Now, Andrew Dice Clay,
he has the bit of that.
Yeah, he's probably more Andy Kaufman than Jim Carrey, and because at the end of the day, this whole episode has been about like comedy in and of itself and what it is and what makes us laugh.
Yeah,
and like you look at Robin Williams, and I just wish I liked his stuff more. That's what it comes down to at the end of it. Because I like him.
He's got the delivery.
I like him.
He's got the delivery.
Yes,
the material. Not so hot, in my opinion.
Now,
but some people like it.
I'm sure there's articles about like people workshopping stuff with him. Of like, how do you build up to it? How do you go on the road and test it?
You know what I'm actually impressed by with Robin Williams live on Broadway is how he actually sustains it for the whole time.
Yes.
It's like, this is 90 minutes and like, you don't actually get bored.
I think the issue with the special that I have is more that like, there's never any end to Robin Williams himself as a performer, that he is so out there and every joke is so disconnected. It's like, God, airport jokes?
I know.
Robin, you're better than this.
I know.
Like, at one point, he mispronounces a word. Can you guess what impression he goes into after that?
Yep. A simple Jack, if you will.
If you will, yeah. He maybe does that more than one time.
Yeah.
Now, wait, did I miss him doing his black guy voice in this?
No, he definitely does that.
Yeah, he can't go 90 minutes on stage without doing one of those.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people loved it. So maybe we're in the wrong. Looking back in the moment, like...
Well, comedy, as I've always said, I was sitting around, smoking cigars with Milton Berle and Jack Benny back when I first started. And Milton said to me something I'll never forget. He said, son, comedy is subjective. And I've held that close to my heart ever since. And then he took out his giant penis and showed it to me.
Whoa, Jack Benny too? Wow.
Yeah, they crossed swords.
It was at the special club. You got to measure before you walk in through the door.
That's
I was there too.
And then they asked me to show mine, and I was like,
Milton Berle was like, heart attack.
And I was like, I already have it out, and they're like, where? I can't see it.
Where do you think your drinks are on? Hey, we should go on the act. We should do this
is good stuff.
A double act.
Yeah,
It'll be the new Andrew Dice Clay. So
Hickory dickory dock.
as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. Our first letter is from Patrick, and he goes, "Hey, cineasts, what is mannered acting? I hear the phrase all the time, but I couldn't find a definition online." Will is typing it into Google right
Mannered
now.
acting.
When you hear the word, not looking at Google, what do you think of? A stylized performance?
Yeah, something that's, and I think of it in a pejorative sense. I think of it in terms of like it's not natural in a bad way. Now, Google says an acting style characterized by exaggerated or unnatural gestures, movements, and vocal inflections, often perceived as overly theatrical or stylized. I think overly is important.
Yeah,
there.
stylized.
It's breaking with the surroundings. in
Now, is
some way.
Marlon Brando mannered acting?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say so, actually, but in a good way.
Because isn't the idea, when I think of mannered acting, I often think of like, you can feel the acting on screen. Like it's so present.
Right.
That you wouldn't.
So for me, a good example of mannered acting is Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Yeah.
A bad example is Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon.
Yes. Oh, so mannered acting in your mind is usually tied to dramatic performances.
Yes, I would say so.
When I hear mannered acting, I'm like, Jim Carrey in A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yeah, or Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura. Yeah, is that mannered? But does mannered act? When I think of mannered acting, I also think of, I've said it so many times it loses any kind of meaning, like just almost a Merchant Ivory kind of thing, like mannered acting, like on stage.
That's in that case, that's they have good manners.
No, not specifically like that, but just like hoity-toity, if you will.
Sure.
Something that me and Will are not familiar with.
So listen, you've got two good definitions there, and you can choose whichever one you want.
Two of them that are almost diametrically opposite to
Yeah.
each other. Our next letter is from Jerry, and he asks, in your Godzilla episode, you correctly described the scene in Terror of Mechagodzilla where Godzilla runs toward Mechagodzilla against a hellfire of missiles and laser blasts
So good. I can see it right now.
as pure cinema. What are some other film moments that you would describe as pure cinema? How would you, this is our definition episode of the Important Cinema Club. First, we define comedy. Secondly, we define a mannered acting.
So when he says it in relation to that, I would think of pure cinema as being something that's sort of ethereal or transcendent. Something
Yeah,
that's-
ecstatic.
Yeah, something poetic. And yet, for some reason, the first example I could come up with is not that. It was Joe Don Baker in Walking Tall with the big stick fucking up the casino.
See, when I hear pure cinema, the first thing that goes to my mind is the climax of Speed Racer, where everything is moving such in sync with itself that like it reaches an ecstatic like, oh my god, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Oh, I'll give you a highbrow example. That Werner Herzog short about ski jumpers, those scenes of the ski jumpers in slow motion, that's pure cinema.
Yeah. And now we will retire that term forever and never use it again.
Yeah.
Because if I have to scroll through one more social media where it's like Martin Scorsese, pure cinema.
The
no,
meme, yeah.
Never stop it.
Yeah, Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo with their like booster boots at the end
Pure
of
cinema.
Super Mario Brothers. Yeah.
So basically what it means is anything ironically that you loved as a child and that you're now watching as an adult and trying to justify in some way that it moves you.
That's
you
right.
call it pure cinema.
But I'm not ironic about Terror of Mechagodzilla. That scene
that's
is pure cinema.
Yeah, I didn't see that when I was a kid, so watching it now, it's just... And we were at the drive-in when we saw it. We're like, oh, what had happened?
It's pure cinema.
Our first letter is from Thomas, and he goes, hey, fellas, I've done something evil. Watch the Lord of the Ring trilogy, then listen to some podcast episodes about it, amongst which was yours from like 14 months ago. None of that is evil. But towards the end, Justin reads a list of movies released in 2024, and Will predicts the domestic box office earnings.
Oh, I bet I didn't do very well.
I have evilly tabulated the prediction and actual earnings below. Red is underestimated, green is over. Do with it what you will.
I bet it's just a sea of green and reds.
Your show is great, funny, introduced me to great filmmakers. This is appreciated, Tommy.
Are there any there that are really embarrassing?
Let's see. Wow, he actually did Will's prediction, domestic, actual international, and then how much you were off.
It was inevitable that somebody would do this.
Yes.
I
think we made a joke at the time.
What's the one I was off the most?
Let's see. It would be Mufasa.
What did I say?
Will's prediction, domestic, $1,000 million. So $1 billion.
Wait. Okay, that can't be right.
Yeah.
I think I'm being misquoted there.
It says in notes, being funny.
Oh,
quotation
okay.
marks.
Doesn't sound very funny to me, but okay.
I would say, Will, that you were wrong almost every time. Mostly above 50%. There's one person that is close to correct, and it's me. When it
Really?
was Kraven the Hunter, you said 65 million. I said 25. I don't know if I said domestic, and it made 30. So I was the closest.
That's interesting because I think 14 months ago, the idea that a superhero movie could flop at that scale was still a little foreign to me.
Yeah,
but
if you listen to that episode again, I explained to you what that Spider-Man universe thing is. Like, you're a 45-year-old man that hasn't...
I guess the lesson is don't put me in charge of a studio.
Nope. Let's see here. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, you said 130. It made 171. That's not too far off. Yeah. And that's domestic, which is all of the things that we said. Actually, The Fall Guy... You predicted 80 million, and it made 93 million domestic. So that's pretty close.
Bullseye.
We were way off on Dune 2, way off on The Beekeeper.
I think there was some episode when I predicted Joker 2 would make like 200 million. And I think I was definitely off on
It's right here. You predicted 120 million.
Oh, okay.
It made 58 million. Man, the Joker made no money. That's
See,
wild.
wow. I really thought I was lowballing it with that 120 million.
Yeah. Nope.
But no.
The first one made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
So I don't know. I'm not that embarrassed by some of these predictions.
No, and we were joking as well.
Yeah. It's great plausible deniability.
Comedy,
anything I say you don't agree with, it was a joke. It was ironic.
So our next letter is from Tom, and the subject line is Matt Farley in London.
Oh.
Dear Justin and Will, I'm writing this on the train back to Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire? How do you say it?
Why are you asking me?
Shire, in the middle of England after a life-affirming weekend in London watching the films of Matt Farley. I'm not sure where he came into my life, but no, it was through your podcast a few years back, and then came the flood of music, books, and beautiful Blu-rays posted from Canada. Each screening was a celebration of the creative spirit of the Moturn machine, and honestly, a celebration of how your podcast promoted the talents of a creative powerhouse. Most people are on there are listeners or read Will's ad post on Letterboxd.
Ooh, I'm glad to know that helped.
A quick word on the screenings. River Beast had us button-up Brits cheering and clapping, something I've never experienced here. Wow. Local Legends played like a blockbuster comedy, and by the time we got to Magic Spot, the cheers were joined by a real hearty aww as the wholesome goodness finished a celebration of all things Farley. Thanks both, and huge congratulations to Ben and Ethan, the organizers, and Farley himself.
That's great to hear. I'm very happy that happened.
Matt Farley, if you missed the last 5 episodes that we did, he went to London with his family, and because a listener of the Important Cinema Club, I believe, Ben
and Ethan, they put on some screenings of his movies and got to meet his British fans.
I will say that there are some semi-famous people that attended those screenings that then reached out to Peter Kaplowski and said how much they enjoyed the film.
Peter Kaplowski is
programmer of Midnight Madness, producer of A Violent Nature.
I guess he's the one who will get Moturn to Hollywood.
Well, he's been trying to get Moturn to Hollywood for a decade now.
They just won't watch the movies.
That's the thing, is they won't watch the movies. Listeners of this podcast, even though this is episode 179 million that we've done on this subject.
Listen, it's fine because, if you're in Hollywood, you've already given up the Moturn method.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Well, not everyone. We know someone
we know a few people.
Yeah, who carry the Moturn method book with them.
That's right.
As they write literally $300 million films.
Yeah.
So I'm happy, Matt. If people are not listening to his infomercial podcast, I would highly recommend checking them out because, back in the day, it was just Matt sitting at his computer, just monologuing for an hour, Bill Burr style, if you will. Sometimes he'd have friends over. Those were always my favorite episodes. But now it's turned into, because he's been doing a lot more traveling, is that he captures those trips in little pockets. Oftentimes after the thing happened, before the thing happened. It's so great. The new one that he does it with his wife as they go, basically they just came back from France, and there's one part that's after a screening with the programmers and just some people who tagged along or included.
Oh, that's
Can
amazing.
you imagine going to see a movie of someone that I love him so much, and then they're like, hey, come hang out with me after? That would never happen.
That's amazing.
Ever. And Matt, he shook everyone's hand that went into that cinema. So
imagine going to see a Martin Scorsese movie
and he's like, hey,
Marty came out and said, hey, you want to go grab a drink?
Yeah. And if people
he would never do that though, because he doesn't want to.
I you know what? And yeah, Matt is a different breed, is what I'll say. And if people missed it, Matt was on an NPR show.
That's right. He was on World Cafe with Raina Doris, it was amazing to see. I think he said this on his podcast. It was amazing to see Matt Farley lit
Yes.
professionally.
Yep. Playing a bunch of songs, ask questions not ironically of like, how do you write so many songs?
Yeah.
Or, why did you write a song about me?
It treated him as not a hack, which he's not.
And the infomercial episode about that between him and his wife, very funny.
Very funny.
Because at one point he said, yeah, my wife makes me turn the phone off at night. And his wife was like, you're a shrew of a wife.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Subscribe to the Infomercial Podcast. And our Patreon this week, we've already talked about it.
The Day the Laughter Died. More dice.
More dice. I'm very excited. I rein myself in when we talk about the dice.
I love talking about Andrew Dice Clay.
I feel like The Day the Laughter Died is something that we talked about maybe in the first 10 episodes of this podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe even on the first one we talked about Jerry Lewis and like what makes us laugh.
Maybe.
So we finally, this movie, wink of the mind.
It has nothing to do with cinema except that Andrew Dice Clay...
Well, he did star in films.
That's right. And it's just a supplement to this episode.
So you can check that out at patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club. Next week, we will be discussing filmmaker Martha Coolidge.
What an interesting body of work Martha Coolidge has. I mean...
Let's be honest. A interesting beginning body of work.
I mean, a strange mix of things. I mean, you're probably all familiar, at least in theory, with Valley Girl or Real Genius, or, you know, if you're a younger customer, you might have seen The Prince and Me or Material Girls. But she also made Not a Pretty Picture, her fiction documentary hybrid about a 16-year-old's experience with date rape. That's a Criterion classic now.
City Girl, which... I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't remember reviewing, but I did it and gave it 4 stars. And in 2020, I know why I don't remember seeing this. That was in the middle of the pandemic. And she also did, this is what prompted it, is Vinegar Syndrome just put out a big box of Joy of Sex, which is an 80s boner comedy that she directed, but it's mostly from the perspective of women. Is it good? Not really. And everybody on that box set is like, yeah, this is not good. We were hired at the last minute and the studio took it away from us. But you can look at it and be like, I understand what she was trying to do with this film.
But an interesting career, varied enough to include both Rambling Rose and the Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau comedy Out to Sea.
Hey, she's even got a Christmas film in there, 12 Days of Christmas Eve. So, I mean, she's done everything. Yeah, Material Girls. That's one that played in cinemas, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew people in high school who went to see that. Yeah, yeah.
And she's now the president of the Directors Guild of America.
Yeah.
So lots to talk about next week. Martha Coolidge. And until then, my name's Justin Decloux.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. Will, you finally saw a movie. We've been like, see it, please, see it, Will. Speaking of people not seeing movies.
Well, okay, so there's a Gold Ninja video release called Open Doom Crescendo.
That's right.
By the great Terry Chu, who made Mango Shake. And I love Terry Chu. He's a great guy. I've met him a few times, and I admire him as an artist. And it's just taken me a long time to see Open Doom Crescendo.
For one reason.
Well, for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, you were waiting for the Blu-ray.
I was waiting for the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And it was, so a year ago, 2 years ago, our friend Mike Wood was playing it in Dufferin Grove Park.
Oh, yes, I was there.
He was projecting it on a screen at Dufferin Grove Park. And there were people there. And I remember we went there, and I think we both had the thought of like, let's not watch this in the park.
Well, the issue was it's a very dialogue-heavy film, and they tend to mumble the dialogue in the film. That's what Terry kind of likes. It's like this acting performance style. And as a way around it, the film is completely subtitled. You could not read those subtitles on that projection. It was too fuzzy.
We went to hang out at Eyesore Cinema, and Terry was there too. So he himself also skipped his own screening.
Yeah, you don't usually watch your own movies.
Yeah.
But finally Terry, and then there was one at the Paradise that I think you were out of town for.
Yeah, so I'm glad I was here for this one. And also the other reason I hadn't seen it until now is it's 3 hours long.
Yes. And that is designed from the get-go, is that he approached it with that idea in mind.
It's definitely a durational experience. Like, it's 3 hours long, and it feels 3 hours long, like intentionally so. It takes place in this, would you call it post-apocalyptic?
Absolutely,
it's
yes.
Dystopian, certainly.
It all takes place in basically abandoned fields in the suburbs of Montreal.
And folks, if you have no idea what we're talking about, this is a movie that costs $0.
$0.
Made by an all-Zoomer crew, basically.
Yep. And it's, well, you know what? He's actually closer to our age than you would think.
Okay.
Even though he's got that youthful spirit to him.
Well, what I'll tell you is when I see his movies, I feel old.
Yes.
So
yeah, I remember you saying that when you saw Mango Shake.
yeah, which I like. I like Mango Shake, but it's like a whole other sensibility.
Now, Open Doom Crescendo, I think that the durational kind of like conceit of it does work because of the stylistic things that the movie, I mean, spoiler alert a little bit, there's a moment where it kind of becomes about making the movie and what, like...
Right before the intermission,
Yeah.
you get a bunch of bloopers and outtakes from the movie. You see footage of Terry doing a Q&A for Mango Shake on stage,
Yeah.
where he's sort of delivering a manifesto for his filmmaking, basically. But much of the movie is, these three characters wandering this dystopian post-apocalyptic landscape, which is basically in a field in the suburbs of Montreal near what appears to be an abandoned drive-in cinema.
Yes.
So there are these huge screens, that are there. And I mean, it's inspirational because you look at this and it's like, man, we got dystopian landscapes all around us that you can make sci-fi movies out of.
You could almost say that's what the movie's about. It's very metaphorical in its construction, but also very like, and this is something that Will would not have experienced, like very Adult Swim. Yeah, well, Tim
and Eric,
yeah. And in its construction, the thing about Terry is that,
well, the humor of it is a little bit like So Random. You know what I mean?
A little
Which
bit.
I'm saying like affectionately.
But the thing about Terry is that like everything is so carefully designed, even if it looks like very like slapdash and all over the place. But he is like, every word of the script is like poured over by him.
Well, yeah, some of us, went out for food afterwards, and like we were saying, was the movie improvised? And Peter said, like, no, it's all the script.
Yeah, it's exactly the script. And if you really pay attention to the film, especially the subtitle dialogue, each line is like so intricate in its construction, and that like some of them, they move so fast and it's like joke. You won't get it unless you like focus in on that one line or watch it again, and then you'll catch the second line because you had already laughed at that first one. I think it's an amazing movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that one of the disappointing things is not enough people have seen it.
Well, as Tom Chan, the programmer last night, said in his introduction, he said like he thinks this is a movie designed to be seen like on a laptop 20 years from now. It's a movie that's
I mean, the argument with Terry's with it, I would like people to see it now so I can make more movies.
Make some money. Yeah. And that's fair. But it's like almost by design, it's a movie that is meant to be like subterranean.
And to be discovered and be like, wow, what is this? Like, how can this exist? Yeah, the thing about Terry is that like Mango Shake, I feel should have been a movie that more people saw and got him attention, allowed him to make other things, but it didn't. So like this movie, he basically had to do all himself again. And the movie's so wild too, if you like take a step back and if you get the Blu-ray and you learn about how it was made, like one of the main actors is just a model who had never acted before, who applied to like a Craigslist ad that he put out.
Yeah.
So it's like all these
there are many different acting styles in the movie.
Very much. I mean, Terry, even though I don't think he credits himself anywhere, he is one of the co-leads of the film.
Yeah.
So
and he's good.
Yeah, this movie was on my top 10 list 2 or 3 years ago. So I recommend people to check it out. It's on Golden Ninja Video, Blu-ray, and Terry's going to put it online sooner rather than later. So I just want as many people to see it as well. Because it is the kind of movie at the end of the day, there's a transition that I'm doing here.
Oh, sure.
That someone like Jonathan Rosenbaum would have championed.
Probably not now.
No, but back in the day, like this is the equivalent of like a Jacques Rivette type movie.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great comparison, actually,
Yeah.
Jacques Rivette. Yeah.
In that kind of like...
Or like that Luc Moulet movie about Billy the Kid.
Yes.
It has that kind of feel.
100% like that Billy the Kid movie.
Yeah.
And if you wonder, like I've read some reviews of like Terry being inspired. He is not inspired by those things.
I know.
He has not seen them. It's all internal. But I also bring up Jonathan Rosenbaum because I just want to touch upon this. This subject we will return to a little bit later. J-Ro has been participating in a lot of books lately.
So yeah, he has 3 new books out now.
Yes.
Including one that I'd been waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
In Dreams Begin Responsibilities, I think it's called.
Do you know how big a J-Ro fan is? I pre-ordered this book when it came out, and then it never was released for some reason. There was a delay.
Well, do you have it?
Well, I ordered it again. It shipped to my old address.
Oh.
It's gone. Like I couldn't get it.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I picked it up when I was in the U.S. recently. I found it at a bookstore.
But I just bought it again, and it's coming today. So,
hell yeah.
That's how big it is. And what's funny about that book, we've been waiting for it so long. We have all those articles.
I know.
We have all those other books. It's one of those like best of books.
Well, actually, it's all stuff that's never been collected in a book before.
Really? But I've read that AI review before. Did I read it on his website?
You probably read it on his website.
Okay.
Mostly it's stuff from like the last 10 years.
Oh, okay.
What with some stuff from earlier.
So just his DVD columns from Cinema Scope?
I believe that stuff is still uncollected.
Okay.
And somebody needs to do that. But the other book, another book, because he has 3 out now. The other book, which I've just read.
Okay, anyone who doesn't know who Jonathan Rosenbaum is, which is me and Will's favorite critic.
Yes.
Turn the podcast off now, because we're about to get into the weeds.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and tell you who Jonathan Rosenbaum is right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do an opposite Will. I will very quickly. He wrote for the Chicago
Reader.
Yeah. I was going to say Tribune. No, he did not.
A very highbrow critic.
Yes.
But
one that I stumbled upon myself in college and like opened my eyes to so much stuff.
A highbrow critic who gets you really excited about all the possibilities of cinema.
He may be probably my favorite like critic to read. Like if he has a new thing.
Yeah, and like I think
we did a whole episode on
his
him.
work. I think also like really blends criticism with autobiography in a way that's interesting.
And now that we've said all that,
we're gonna roast him just a little bit.
There's another book that came out.
And I say this all with love because he is our favorite critic. This new book called Travels in the Cities of Cinema.
Man, if this book is any indication, if he hears this.
So I love Jonathan Rosenbaum, favorite critic. This book is a long interview with a writer named Ehsan Khoshbakhsh, who I believe is an Iranian writer.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Rosenbaum has written a lot about Iranian cinema as well.
Yeah, one of the Western authorities on it. And it's this long interview encompassing all of his career up until the present day. Now, if you've been reading Jonathan Rosenbaum for a long time, you've heard these stories.
Yeah.
You've heard about his time in Paris. You know?
Oh, he was in Paris?
Oh, yeah.
that's one for the J-Ro heads out there.
You've heard about the time he met Orson Welles, the time he worked for Jacques Tati.
This Orson Welles story, it's in this book?
Kind of.
Okay.
It's a bit abbreviated.
All right. Phew.
It's also not much of a story.
No, there's no
He had lunch with
there.
him once.
Yeah, that's it.
Then again, if I had lunch with Orson Welles...
You would be saying it all the time, right?
Yeah. But anyway, it's this long interview, and you're reading it, you're following Jonathan Rosenbaum's life, and it is a series of broken friendships and awkward relationships.
You know what's funny is I'm saying that like we're going to roast him. Nothing we're going to talk about is not said by him in this book.
Yeah. So
Will was excitingly sending me excerpts.
I was sending him screenshots of the book.
Each sadder than the last.
It's just like every name that comes up, it seems like Jonathan Rosenbaum had a terrible falling out with them.
Yeah.
It's like Manny Farber. Well, first of all, I think Manny Farber is the greatest American critic. You know, I was his assistant professor at Columbia. Really didn't like him. In fact, I disliked him as a person. That's what he says.
Yeah.
Adrian Martin, the critic, had a terrible falling out with. He talks about, you know, he was in London for a while, and, you know, the Screen magazine and Sight and Sound magazine were these two separate factions that I tried to bring together, and
Jonathan Rosenbaum, the great peacemaker.
And I at the end, they both didn't like me.
All right, we need to drill down into, I think, the first excerpt you sent me, which is wild.
So he's in France, then he goes to England. He gets run out of both countries. Yeah. And then that's I'm just saying a joke, Jonathan.
He's not listening to this. We got no email from him when we did a whole podcast on him. I don't think
we heard it.
You think so?
I think he searches his name.
Okay, yeah.
Then he goes to New York, where he also gets run out of that town, where he
was the one who was tasked to write about Bergman? No, who died?
Oh, that was years later.
Oh, that was years later.
He wrote an article for the New York Times that he now disowns. That was called Scenes from an Overrated Career. Which, in fairness to him, it's like that's what newspapers do to you. They give you an incendiary headline like that. But yeah, he has this thing about like he wrote for Film Comment, and they didn't invite me to their Christmas party.
No, I think it wasn't a party at a festival.
Oh, it was the New York Film Festival.
Yeah,
they didn't invite me to the opening night party, which is
I fucking roasted them in an article.
and then I showed up just to protest, and I called Richard Corliss and said, why didn't I get invited to the party? And we had a fight, and I think we both looked pretty bad from it.
No. I think you're skipping over some stuff. What happened was he wrote an article tearing the New York Film Festival down.
Yeah, there's another good story later when he's in
and he's like, I don't know, you know, we both look pretty bad about.
Yeah.
No. One person looks bad in this situation.
So there's
he still remembers not being invited to that party.
I know. Later, and because I've been reading Rosenbaum for so long, I know all the feuds. So I'm just like, I'm just thinking, is he gonna say it again? And I know that he had a bad relationship with Gene Siskel.
Oh yeah.
And so in Chicago, when we finally get to Chicago, he talks about the familiar things with Siskel and Ebert. He says something like, Gene Siskel didn't know anything about movies. The fact that they named the Gene Siskel Film Center after him was a disgrace. Why they did that, I don't know.
And then he turns around in that interview being like, but I don't understand why he didn't like me.
And then he says, yeah, sure, I was mean to him in print once or twice. And they print an excerpt of what he wrote about Gene Siskel, which is vicious. It's tearing him down.
Yeah.
And I'm reading it. It's like, well, no fucking wonder he didn't like you.
Which is so funny because he wrote a whole rebuttal of a whole film festival because he wasn't invited to the party.
And he also says, like, I was surprised that Pauline Kael never wanted to be my friend or because I thought, she wrote for the New Yorker. I thought she could accept a little bit of light criticism. And it's like, also with Andrew Saris too. It's like both of them
What is
were
the
mad
commonality between all these people disliking
all these people that he wrote really vicious things about? And it's like, yeah, okay, like they're critics, they're fair game, but that doesn't mean they're going to like you.
No, they don't have to like you.
They don't have to like you if you badmouth them in print. Anyway.
Near the end of the book, I don't want to laugh at this poor man's lot.
No, he's a great critic. He's a great writer. He's taught me so much.
But he's also like, I have no friends in Chicago, but I can't move away because my apartment is rent controlled.
He owns his condo.
Oh, he does own his condo.
Actually,
okay.
A big thing is that he has too many books, so just moving all the books would be too expensive. But I think he should just give away all the books. He should move to Paris. I think he'd be really happy.
He should just move to Paris. Does he have friends in Paris?
Probably.
Or was he running out on a rail there as well?
He mentions that he has like lots of friends in other cities, not so much in Chicago.
I will say, my one run-in, my meeting Orson Welles story, when I, stopped Jonathan Rosenbaum in the lobby of the Scotiabank Cinema just to tell him that I liked his work. That's all. I just tell him, and he said, "Oh, thank you." And he reacted as if I was like someone there to serve him papers. He was like, oh, when I said
well, yeah, in fairness, I might too.
But he was sitting behind me with a row of people during that Godard biopic.
Oh, the one by Michelle Hazanavicius.
And they were laughing it up. So we had friends there.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm happy that there's some happiness there. Can we tell our Jonathan Rosenbaum story? Listen.
What's our Jonathan Rosenbaum story?
Going to the talk.
Oh, yeah. Well, we saw him speak last year. Yeah.
And just the story that the moderator told.
Okay.
Have we said this? I'm sure we have.
Okay. So the moderator, who was a student at U of T, and if you're listening, and you might be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to make fun of you.
No, we're not making fun of you.
But the moderator was telling this story about, he studied in Chicago under Jonathan Rosenbaum. And, he mentioned having seen, God, what was the movie?
No, what I'm thinking of is that the first class that he had, Jonathan Rosenbaum at the end was like, is anyone live around this area?
No, that's right. Yeah.
And then he was like, and then the kid was like, oh, I live around there. Jonathan was like, oh, okay. Can I get a ride to class?
Yeah. And then they're riding home, and then I think Jonathan Rosenbaum asks, have you seen any movies lately? And he's like, oh, I saw this movie by Don Siegel.
Isn't it the John Wayne Goes to England movie?
Yeah. Anyway, he saw this Don Siegel movie. I thought it was pretty good. Jonathan Rosenbaum was like, oh yeah, I saw that one. I didn't like it too much. Anyway, good night. Then the next class is like, can you drive me home again?
Yeah.
And okay, sure.
Hey, are you gonna throw away those chicken wings?
Yeah.
Throw them in a pot and you got yourself a stew going.
Yeah. Driving back, and Rosenbaum was like, so I saw that Don Siegel movie again. I saw it. I had my third viewing of it. Still didn't like it very much. And it's like,
but the guy that was doing the Q&A is like, Jonathan Rosenbaum, willing to take chances, revisit things, reevaluate.
Based even on the recommendation of a student like me.
But I love that he would just be like, bad, not good.